right, thanks very much. Well, the former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, the featured speaker at the Republican convention last night, joins us this morning. Good to have you with us.
Good morning, Sean.
A more partisan speech, I think, than people anticipated from you. You were sharply critical of John Kerry. Are you saying that the Democratic nominee is not strong enough, not resolute enough to lead the war on terror?
Certainly not as resolute as President Bush. This is not a comparison against, you know, some abstraction. It's a comparison against a president who has been very strong, very consistent, and very willing to take a tremendous amount of public criticism and ridicule because he believes very strongly that the only way we're going to make ourselves safe at home is to be on offense overseas. That you can't spend enough money, you can't erect enough barriers at home to protect us unless you go out, search for the terrorists, and try to immobilize them, stop them, do whatever you have to do outside this country. What I see in John Kerry is different positions at different times. So I just step back from that and conclude that that's the way he would conduct himself if he were president, that he would be more of a shifting kind of politician, meaning he'd take one position for a while, and then maybe if there was a lot of disapproval, or maybe if some foreign countries made it a little uncomfortable, and he seems to have more of a desire to ingratiate himself in that area, that it would not be as resolute as President Bush.
Does 9/11, because it was the theme last night, belong as a political issue in this country? Both you and John McCain made the point last night, hearkening back to the days after 9/11 when we were a united nation, when we were just Americans, not Democrats and Republicans. By making it a political issue, isn't that in and of itself divisive?
Well, they made it one before we did. You're ignoring the Democratic primary. Months and months, $70 million of ads, attacking President Bush, a lot of it over his leadership with regard to September 11. Michael Moore, who became a big feature of this convention last night, was a major hero at the Democratic convention. He did a $110 million movie about what a horrible job President Bush did, in his estimation, with September 11. So how do we as Republicans defend the president that we think has done a good job with September without mentioning it? This would be like, wouldn't even be a fight with one hand tied behind your back. This would be a fight with two hands tied behind your back, and John Kerry and John Edwards and Teddy Kennedy and Michael Moore could all attack the president. They just about called him a liar and all kinds of other things. And we can't say anything because it's September 11th. So I think there's a double standard that's being utilized here. The Republicans have done nothing with September 11th the Democrats haven't done. At the Democratic convention, they had a memorial to September 11th. We had a memorial. At our convention, we mentioned September 11th. They mentioned September 11th, I think, over 60 times at their convention. So, of course, we're going to mention September 11th. And here's why it's so necessary. This would be like Abraham Lincoln running for re-election in 1864, and somebody saying, because there were draft riots in New York or whatever, you can't mention the Civil War. It's a war that's going on. Of course the president has to be able to mention it.
And President Bush said yesterday, we cannot win this war, which was an interesting comment. Just a month ago, he had said he had a clear vision and a strategy for winning the war. Yesterday said, we can't win it. Is that a change of position?
No, that is not what the president said. I went over it, and the president said, or meant to say, or however it was interpreted, whether this is taken out of context, or what the president was saying, is exactly what I said at the end of my speech last night, which is, you're not going to win this war in the same way that you have won traditional wars. You're not going to have a crumbling of a wall like the end of the Cold War. You're not going to have a surrender on an aircraft carrier like the war in Japan. You're not going to have a nation that surrenders. What you're going to see is a reduction in terrorism and then an end of terrorism. And that is achievable. And that's how you win this war. And it's going to take 4 or 5 years. And the president believes that. I talked to the president just less than a week ago when I traveled with him to New Mexico. The president believes we can win the war on terror. The president believes that we will win it, and the president is an optimist about it. But we're not going to win it on one day with one great battle or one great surrender. And it will probably take us a year to a year and a half to 2 years to know that we've actually won it. It'll peter out, if that's the right description of it. There'll be fewer attacks, and then if we do this right and God blesses us, and it'll end at some point.
Rudy Giuliani, good to have you here early in the morning after a late night last night.
Thank you
for being here. Diane?